But you'll notice that I picked a couple of things that I'm not going to be teaching you about in these chapters. Why? Because it doesn't make sense. Okay, I mean, plant biology, and that is a whole different topic. I'll go over that in another chapter, another time. Okay, which is actually the next thing we'll do. The first thing you have to realize is that we're talking about development. And I'm going to concentrate on the human development a little bit more than other animals. Why? Because some of you guys might go in medical fields, being on the fast track for science. Okay, so I need you to pay attention. All right. Once the egg is fertilized, remember the egg is a haploid structure. It means one set of chromosomes. Okay, some people are really getting confused by this concept. One set of chromosomes means that, you know, it's just 23 from you, but bacteria is also haploid. It has a full set of chromosomes. It's just now it doesn't have a male and female component to it. Okay, does that make sense? It's asexual. All right, where it's one set of chromosomes, where a diploid is two sets. All right, that's where some of you guys get confused in meiosis. What's that?
That's a gamete.
That's right. A gamete is just basically like a sperm and an egg. Okay, it's what they call one end, and then 2N is diploid. Yep.
Are the body cells diploid or haploid? Like the cells in our body? Are they?
Body cells are actually 46 chromosomes. Remember the DNA replication. That's why I taught it to you. You're replicating the full set. Meiosis is where we actually take a full cell and differentiate into a sperm or an egg. Okay, now I'm going to go over that process. So hold on, because there's going to be a logic how I go over that, because I want to get to this point first before we actually talk about that. All right? Yes?
So before we were talking about like cell reproduction, that was all mitosis, right?
What's that? Yes, exactly. Okay. All right, let's move over this. Once the egg is fertilized, right, we call it a what? A zygote. Okay, you got to know that. It's part of your essays. Okay, I can sit so you can. That's it, so you don't fall. All right. You're going to take a look. Right. The term gamete means that you have the sperm or the egg at 23 chromosomes. It's a haploid structure. Once you actually get into the embryonic development, or the embryo, okay, it is actually going into a full stage. Okay, so it goes like zygote into an embryo into a full human being. The cleaving part is that stage where the cells basically start dividing. Okay, so it goes from a single cell fertilized egg into 2, 4, 8, okay, 16, 32, right, and then it exponentially grows. Okay, Lucy, stop, please. Focus on this. So when you take a look here, this stage of the blastula, all right, that's when you get into that stage where it basically becomes a round, spherical object, right, and it's actually about the size of a pinhead in a human being, right, and you can see the blastula actually underneath the microscope that you drew, that you're going to turn in on Friday with your lab report, okay, so that's the starfish one. Now the gastrulation one, you got to know the germ layers, and you got to know the diagram. So what I did is I copy and pasted one of these, okay, right on in there, you can see the diagram. Okay, so let's draw it out, and let's actually label it and see who knows what they're talking about. Okay, so let's just take a look. So if I put a picture of, let's say, a gastrula, okay, and it kind of looks like this, all right, and this is over here. These cells here that are on the outside, okay, that already line the whole thing, and they go all the way around, okay, right to here. Then you got another set that are in here. And then you got another set that are in here. Okay? Alright, so let's label it. These are called what? Okay, now if it doesn't come fast to you, you're not proactively studying. You're reactively studying. And that's not going to be successful in honors chem. Higher level science classes, you gotta go over the notes daily sometimes. You just can't wait to the test. Okay? So if this doesn't come quick to you, you gotta remember I had you do that lab for a reason and draw that diagram because it's gonna be on your test. So here, this is the ecto or endo? Ecto. Bang, right? You got to know what this forms. The ectoderm, okay, forms the skin and the nervous system. That's a multiple choice question. All right? So the ectoderm is responsible for subcutaneous, cutaneous. Okay, if you don't know what those words mean, you'll learn them in med school or whatever you take, or anatomy. Okay, that basically means skin layers. Okay? Epidermis. And then what happens here is that now we got another layer, this one, that lines the digestive system. What's that called? Endo. Endo, meaning inside. That's how I memorized it when I was a freshman, okay? Ecto, meaning exterior, right? This one, endo, the lining of the digestive system. Then we got this middle layer called what?
Mesoderm.
Alright, so now we got the endoderm, which is actually the digestion outer layer lining. And then we got the meso, which is the skeletal system, the blood, the muscles, and the heart. Okay, those are multiple choice questions. I'll ask you which germ layer develops A, B, C, D, E, okay, into the skeletal system. Alright, so make sure that you guys know what they do and what they develop into. Yes?
Will you ask questions about the, like, arcane?
Yes, that's where I'm going right now. So now, okay, we have to label a couple of things. We got the 3 germ layers, which you should know. Now we got a primitive gut, the Arcturian. Our Arcturian, obviously, archaeology, just think ancient, right? It's basically a primitive gut. And what happens is that you get a process called invagination, means the folding in. Okay, during the gastrulation process, you get the folding in, and then eventually it actually will connect all to the side. We got a mouth, which is called a what? It's also on the test. Blastopore, and then you got the anus over here. Okay, it's just one big tube that forms. All right, so in early development, okay, even in the starfish or any 3-germ layer, you'll actually get invagination all the way to the other side, and that's where you get this tube-like structure. The ancient tube-like structure is the Arcturian, and actually that's on the test. Now I'll give you a word bank on the side, and I'll say match up with the appropriate letter.
Is that
Everybody okay with that? Yes.
Is that the word Arcturian? Is that on the board right now?
It's not. It's actually in here, and
Okay.
that's what it is. No, actually I didn't put that on.
Can you like write it up?
Yes.
More?
Okay, please make sure, you don't have to spell it correctly or anything. I'll have all the words for you written out in a thing. You just have to match with the appropriate letter. It's a very simple thing. Okay. I always have to double check, make sure I spell it. Alright, anybody got questions? That's the ancient or primitive gut. Okay, it's the enfolding. Alright, anybody got questions? Alright, so that's probably about 10 questions on the test. Okay, I mean, you can see where I was going with it. Multiple choice as well as like some labeling. Yes?
On the PowerPoint, do we have to, like, know about the primary and secondary? There's, like, something about that on that.
Just concentrate on this today, and then if you have, primary and secondary, what is it?
I don't remember. It said something about primary and secondary, like there was
Like this is what I'm focusing on, and I made up the test like 5 hours ago this morning, and whatever I say today is going to be definitely on there. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff that I could test you on, but I only have a limited amount of time. So do you, Charles?
Alright, so the only difference between a blastula and a gastrula is the gastrula is just folded in on its own.
Invagination, gastrulation means that you get this process of the 3
So
germ layers.
gastrulation and invagination is the same thing, basically.
No, invagination is the infolding of this layer. The gastrulation is the process of making the 3 germ layers.
Okay.
All right? So, yeah.
What does it go through before it's like attached and then after? Like, isn't it called two different things?
Attached to what? The human cell? Human cell is actually attached, and we'll get to that in a second. Okay, this is anything right now. This could be anything with 3 germ layers. But when we talk about human development, right, we actually get what they call implantation, where now the blastiocyst will actually implant into the uterine wall, okay, in the uterus.
There's also, isn't there embryo versus fetus? That's kind of different.
Yeah, it is. 8 weeks. 8 weeks is actually where it's called a fetus and not an embryo.
Okay.
Okay.
So gastrulation occurs before invagination?
It's actually all part of it.
It's all part of it?
Yeah,
Like,
it's a
all
process
in
of
one
invagination means the enfolding. Okay?
Yeah, but like when are the 3 germ layers formed? Like right when vagination occurs?
Yes. Actually, once it starts folding in, you'll actually be able to distinguish the different cells in the 3 germ layers. Okay? Just almost like, I'd have to look up exactly what species, when you can see the 3 germ layers, because it is species specific. But they all form, actually all 3 at one point.
Does gastrulation occur after implantation?
Actually after. Okay, gastrula, it actually goes into a blastocyst, then it implants in the human body, and then it goes through gastrulation, and then you get the 3 germ layers.
It's part of one of our essay questions, right?
That is, yes. All right, let me move on, because you guys are kind of, I'm not trying to avoid your questions, I'm just trying to, get to all the material that's on this piece of paper. The ectoderm, mesoderm. Okay, now, a couple of things. Okay, this was actually a homework question. When you take a look here, during this phase here, all right, we have the nervous system here, okay, which is actually part of that ectoderm, you'll actually see something like a little, and it was part of your it was part of your homework question, okay, and it's talked about two important distinctions. The notochord is actually the skeletal backbone. Okay, as you guys know, you have this solid skeletal backbone, which is a protective device for the nervous system. The nervous system here, the ectoderm, actually develops into the spinal cord itself, okay, which is actually a cluster of nerve cells that go all the way up to your base of your brain and attach to your brain, okay? And this is really important because that's a primitive nervous system is what we call a neural tube, okay? And that's what develops into your nervous system in your brain and in your spinal cord, okay? The skeletal system that protects it is called the notochord, okay? Just make sure you understand that distinction. It was in the book.
So what you're saying is that up there, like little circles you just
Yes, you don't have to label it. You don't have to do anything like that. But when you guys did your homework, I know some people struggle with this concept. But you just have to know the distinction. There's one question on there. It says, what layer might develop into the neural tube? Okay, obviously it's the nervous system, the ectoderm. Okay, I just want to make sure you know that. All right, anybody have any questions about these? Okay, let's actually take a look into here, human development, because now we actually get into it. Yes?
Where, like, what part of the primitive, like the gastrula, where would the notochord develop and the neural tube?
Actually, right in here, you'll actually get the enfolding, and then all of a sudden you'll see this big, huge circle, and that is the, it's not on the test. Okay, we're actually almost getting off track, but that's what would happen. It actually would form like this.
After it folds in on itself all the way through.
Yes, and then you actually get this shape like this, and that is the neural tube.
So it's like behind it.
Yeah, and you got to think three-dimensional.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, you get this digestive tract, right?
So like,
and then right behind here,
yeah.
just like you.
Yeah.
Okay. It's advanced development and embryology, right? We could go on for hours about it, but I don't want to. Yes, just go off too much.
One thing, the Archaeopteron.
Yes, Arcturian.
That's just that area, right, where the
It's a primitive gut. That's all you got to know.
yeah, that's where the endoderm cells
No, the endoderm is the lining around the Arcturian.
are. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
actually inside the primitive gut itself.
Okay.
Okay, this is the blastopore of the mouth. The endoderm is actually the lining of the digestive system, just the lining, not
Okay.
the Arcturian. Okay, all right, any other questions? Let's move on. All right, you guys watched the movie. Obviously, it was a very long movie, but it had a very good, it did a very good job by, one, showing you how the baby developed, okay? And there's a couple of key things that you have to know. The amniotic sac is the protective sac that surrounded the baby. Okay, don't forget that. It's filled with a fluid called what? Good, amniotic fluid. Now, females, sometimes they'll actually take a sample of amniotic fluid if they want to test for certain diseases or certain genetic traits. Remember, the baby's breathing in the amniotic fluid in the lungs and it's trying to develop it. Okay? It's connected, the baby is connected to the placenta, which is actually a lining, okay? And this lining is filled with a bunch of nourishment. It's a gas exchange, CO2. All that goes through the umbilical cord and it connects to the placenta. Okay? That's really important to understand that. So the placenta is actually the nourishment sac that the baby is actually connected to from the umbilical cord. Alright? And that is where the gas gets exchanged and everything else. The nourishment of the mother, okay, goes to the placenta through the blood vessels, and then it gets into there, and that's where it gets into the baby. Yes?
And the amnion, the placenta is inside the amnion.
Yes, and Mrs. Voltel's class did a dissection of a egg, right? We didn't do that because we're growing that. They didn't do this one, and we just kind of changed off. In a real egg, you can actually see the amniotic sac for a chick. Okay, you can actually see it, especially if you're growing live ones. It's very evident. All right, so don't forget, in the film, right, they showed you the amniotic sac. All right, now, in twins, okay, you actually have two amniotic sacs, not one. All right, they're actually in this protective thing.
I thought you said if they were identical, they would share one. And if
No, they share the placenta.
Okay.
They have different umbilical cords, but they share the placenta. Everybody hear that? That's actually on the test. I'll ask you the definition of an identical twin, okay, and also fraternal, and we'll get into that in a second. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
the gas exchange occurs in the placenta? I think that's
Yes, this is actually where the CO2 and the waste and everything, it just kind of exchanges. Think of it think of it as all these like little blood vessels on the lining of the wall, and this is actually where, like, just like you guys have for your lungs, where the gas goes back and forth, and then it goes into the umbilical cord for nourishment. Yep.
She said identical twins share the.
Don't worry about that yet. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to go in order. Okay, I'm going to get down to identical twins at the end. Okay, I'll show you a picture of it. We're jumping the gun. Okay, pay attention to what I'm saying because you guys are rushing it and you're thinking too much. Fetus, 8 weeks. Okay, make sure you know what that is. 8 weeks. All right. Haploid, diploid, very simple. Right, 1 set of chromosomes, 2 set of chromosomes. Diopside. Okay. Meiosis. Let's actually, if you didn't copy this down, I'll come back to it. But I want to roll down the screen to show you the images that you guys are asking for. Meiosis. Take a look. All right, on the resources page, there's 2 sets of notes. Please make sure you download them if you didn't already. You should be already doing that. Okay, you got the development ones. Okay, and you got chapter 10, and you got the reproduction, which, I don't know why there's
Close 3 or still
freaking out. There it goes.
Happy green screen.
All right, meiosis. Okay, some of you guys are getting confused. Don't forget this. Okay, when on the meiosis screen, and this is what's confusing some people, is when you see an X structure on the meiosis screen, that means it is has 2 sets of chromosomes during division. Okay, once you see this, where you actually get the breaking apart at the centromere, now it becomes an haploid. Okay, sperm and eggs are haploid. The objective is to take the genetic material, shuffle it, and then divide it. Okay, that's why some of you guys are getting confused on those slides. All right, so once you see an X, that means it's actually a diploid structure. It has 2 N. It's both sets of chromosomes. Once you get the second division, you're going to see it becomes a haploid. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so that's where some of you guys were really getting confused on that. All right, so now laying that groundwork, let's actually go to the next slide where we actually look at the process of meiosis, which is just PMAT twice. Okay, so take a look here. How do I get rid of this?
Just hit out.
Escape. I'm trying.
Hit that little arrow again.
Hit the arrow. That,
Down, down.
yeah.
Which one?
Down.
Oh, down,
this
that
thing?
one.
Oh, yeah. All right. Parent cell. Okay, specialized cell. Now we get differentiation. It says, hey, look, the code is saying, hey, look, we need sperm, we need an egg, whatever it is. Now that cell differentiates. Okay, now we looked at some differentiation. We looked at nerve cells, right, under the drawings or skin or whatever we did. Once a cell decides, hey, look, I need to be that sex cell, whatever it is, now we go through the P phase. The P phase is where the nuclear membrane breaks down. Still 2 sets of chromosomes. Still, okay? Metaphase, we get, this is actually a question on the test. I think one of the first or 2. We get the midline form, right? We know what that is. As soon as you hear meta, right, it starts midline. The 2 sets of chromosomes are actually pulled apart. We get 2 daughter cells. Are they haploid or diploid?
Diploid.
Excellent. Some of you guys thought they were haploid for some reason. You still got the X's. Except what is the big difference?
They shuffle.
They crossed over. They shuffled. Think of it like a poker table, right? The dealer's sitting there, right? Shuffled them. Yeah, exactly. And that's where I think some people are really getting confused. Once we get the division, now we still got a crossing over. We got shuffling occurred. Now in regular mitosis, this doesn't happen. Right? We just get the splitting. There's the genetic material is still the same. Here we get the crossing over. That's the big difference. Now we got 2 daughter cells. These 2 daughter cells now go through a second division. Except on the second division, what happens? Bang, they get pulled apart. And I think it was my mistake because I was assuming that you were seeing the X's and the haploid structures, and I think that's the biggest problem, is that you guys, these are haploids. Now, females, pay attention. You get 1 viable egg per division here for the 4. The other 3 are what we call polar bodies. They get diffused back into the body, and the genetic material actually goes and gets kind of recycled and reabsorbed. So the one egg is viable. Does that make sense? So this happens in the female body when they're in the fetus stage. That's what's amazing to me. Men, we're doing this constantly. We're producing 4 sperm all the time. I think even up to like 65. Okay, so we're still viable. Okay, I think after 65 the cells become unviable, and I think fertility and all that. Yes?
So they cross over with your own DNA,
Yes. Yeah, well, your mom and dad's, right?
but if you're producing eggs, then it's just the same person's DNA in both cells.
No, but you got to remember, it's shuffling the genetic material. Okay?
But it's genetic material, both ones are from the same
You
person.
have your mom and your dad in you. Okay? You got 23 chromosomes from your mom and 23 chromosomes from your dad. Okay, that makes 46 chromosomes up. Okay? Once you shuffle it once, it does a second shuffle here.
And so so it's shuffling mom and dad from the generation above, not the generation of the kid.
Generating whatever genetic material makes up that cell. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Whatever's in there, that's where you're going to get differentiation into sex cells here. And this is happening in the testes and in the ovaries. Okay. All right, everybody clear on that? Yep.
Does the crossing over happen in prophase 1?
It happens actually in here, metaphase. It doesn't happen in prophase. The nuclear membrane's breaking down. It's actually metaphase. Okay, and also in metaphase 2. Okay, see that you got the same thing here? It's in the metaphase right here is where you get the actually crossing. Yeah.
The cells are like switching in prophase 2 or prophase 1. Why does it say there's 2 cells when it's still
I'm sorry, say that again one more time because I'm running out
They're
of time.
switching at prophase 2. Why is it like 2 cells?
Prophase 2.
Yes.
Why does it look like there's 2 cells? Because these are the 2 daughter cells. They came from a single cell here. They went through the PMAT, which is going to produce two cells, right? If we went through PMAT once, we just had mitosis. Now we're going through it twice. So this is 2 daughter cells. These are diploid. And now we split it, and we take the centromere, and we pull on it, and we break it apart. And now we got 4.
First PMAT, they're not actually duplicating, they're just like separating.
You're separating, but you're also making new cells. Remember, there's cytokinesis going on and everything else. All right, so you're actually making a new cell.
Yeah, like,
But sperm, don't forget, sperm and eggs are totally different. They're not like the regular cell. They're only one set of chromosomes. And sperm do not last a long time. Okay, they're not meant to, because either fertilization happens in a certain amount of time or it doesn't. They don't like live for like years.
and I've been told like in the past, like guys never run out of, like,
Remember, this is happening constantly in your body.
yeah, like they don't run out at like 65, like it always sucks.
I have to look it up, but I think actually the viable, meaning that you might not run out, but I don't think you can reproduce after a certain age. I think it's like once you hit like 65 or 70, I don't think the sperm is as viable as they used to be. I know there's a lot of research. Now, that doesn't mean a male, I'm not going to get on this because we're running out of time, but that doesn't mean a male can't have a baby in the 70s, but there's always extremes, and who knows. Yes?
I think the thing that might have been confusing Patrick a little bit was like on that thing it doesn't show like full cytokinesis for prophase 2.
Exactly.
So that's what
Exactly.
it might have been.
And I think that was kind of confusing people. All right, let's move on. I'm going to answer your questions right after, but I need to get through these, otherwise you're going to be at a disadvantage in other classes. Take a look here. Twins. Okay? And you can share this with other classes because I did add these twin questions on there. I will mention it to them if they... Okay, you got basically the twins. Don't forget. Okay, we have this one egg and one sperm for these monozygote or identical twins. They have the same placenta. Okay, that's the answer on the test. They got 2 amniotic sacs, 2 umbilical cords, but the same placenta. Here, we got separate placentas. Okay, this is the same genetic material, and it just divides. Okay? All right? Here, fraternal twins, now we got separate placentas, and actually you see the 2 babies actually separated in there. Okay? Please make sure you understand that 2 eggs, 2 sperm. Okay? These are called dizygotic, obviously 2 eggs and 2 sperm. Here, monozygote, which is actually 1 egg.
So, do they have direct contact, or are they just through different amniotic sacs that they can touch each other?
When in the movie said that, when they're actually kicking, okay, they can actually kick just like the mother. You can feel all the kicks and everything else, but you actually are in separate amniotic sacs in both. Okay, so it's not direct physical contact, but you do get touching through the sac and everything else like that. Yeah.
You So they're like identical twins because they're from like the same like
Genetic material.
they're like a lot smaller when they're born.
Not necessarily. Don't have to be. Depends on nourishment. But you know they are using the same placenta where this one isn't, so sometimes it can be.
Yeah, because it's just like
yeah.
one's sperm would be like smaller.
Yeah. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, it does depend, but I mean, I would see that logic in, let's say, placenta nourishment wise. Yeah.
Is it possible for fraternal twins to look alike?
Sure, but you got to remember, you're taking 2 eggs and 2 sperms, so you actually have to do the calculations for the genetic crosses, right? Now, my brother and I don't look anything alike. Well, my sister and my brother look exactly alike, even though they're not twins. Okay, so it does depend on how the genetic dominances and all that become expressed, the phenotypes and all that. So think about it, right? I mean, you don't even have to be twins to look exactly alike. I know some of you guys who your brother and sister is, but how you look. Trust me, been teaching so long, I can know your older brother or sister based on your looks, if you have one that went to school here. Okay? Now, some of you guys, I didn't know you were related at all based on looks. Why? Because you got enough genetic diversity, somehow. Okay? All right, hold your questions. Let's get into the couple more questions on the test. Okay? This diagram, know this one, because this is actually one I took
Post it on YouTube.
before I took it off the web.
So I'll put it on Twitter and
Okay.
you can find it on YouTube. You can watch
Okay,
it.
Velasquez-Core, you need to know ectoderm, endoderm, archyterian, and that's it.
Do you know the primary
Okay?
message?
No, mesochondrium, no. All right, anybody got any questions on that?
Talking about
Okay, let's move on. That's all. That's it for the diagram. Okay, now this is a couple of tough questions. Take a look. Okay, there's a couple of things I want you to know because this lays the groundwork for when we start talking about ecology. Okay, internal fertilization and external fertilization. Okay, well, give me an animal besides us that has internal fertilization.
Sharks.
Sharks do. They have claspers. Okay, they basically, the male and female, they'll copulate and then they'll actually internally fertilize. They also give live birth. So now, not only is it internal fertilization, but what? Internal development. Okay, so on the test, I'll ask you A, B, C, D, E. Which critter gives internal development? Which one gives internal fertilization? Okay, so let's pay attention closely. Okay, let's say internal fertilization. Virus? Yes or no?
No.
Not at all, right? It's not even considered alive, one, and then you can't even put in that classification. It doesn't even have a developmental system. It just infects genetic material. Salmon, internal fertilization. No, matter of fact, salmon will actually, no. Okay, how about porpoise?
Yes.
Obviously, any type of dolphin, porpoise. Okay, internal fertilization. How about amoeba?
No.
They just fission, right? They just split. Okay, asexual reproduction.
And that's like binary fission?
Yes, it is. Okay, external fertilization. How about external fertilization? Monkey,
No.
whale,
No.
bird.
Yes.
No.
No.
External fertilization.
No.
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 Right? Goldfish.
Yes.
Yes.
How about external development? Frogs.
Yes.
Of course, right? And that's on the test.
Who
You
said
get that
no?
when you haven't been doing any work in life. All right. Now, please pay attention to this. This is probably number 10 as like level.
I got you. I got you.
As hard as it gets. This is where we start dealing with a couple of hormones in the human body. You got to understand these. Okay. Let's go back to that one picture. Okay. I forgot to show you that.
Oh,
That
more
one
pictures.
picture. Okay. This is actually on the test. Please pay attention. This one picture is on there.
I'm recording.
Then we're done for today.
I know. I'm just.
If we like stared at an amoeba through the microscope for like long enough so we can see it like split, or if it's like time.
Sure, without up. Google it on YouTube.
And also,
We'll see it move around.
Well, amoeba just randomly split and then like kind of happened and then like
Not randomly. It's not randomly. There's certain signal proteins that say, hey, look, we need to reproduce, we need to split. And there's certain environmental factors that will make it happen.
We need more amoebas.
Pay attention, okay? Shh. your brain, your hypothalamus, actually is a control mechanism, just like you guys know, for homeostasis and a bunch of other things. And what that does, it releases a hormone that sends a signal. It's a signal hormone, basically. And it sends a signal down to the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland, okay, basically releases two very important hormones. Okay, the luteinizing hormone and the follicle-stimulating hormone. Both of these work together in conjunction to release the egg in the female. Okay, now, on the homework assignment, right, that number 1, they actually have this graph. You guys remember this, right, in the book. Look at that. Some of you guys blew that off and said, do I have to do it? Of course you have to do it. Okay, I make you do that one. Now, you notice during menstruation, certain hormones will peak, and certain hormones will actually decrease. When a female is at the end of her cycle, what happens is that the estrogen levels and the progesterone levels will decrease a lot. Okay? A female is fertile at what time of the monthly cycle, day-wise?
The beginning.
They're middle.
Right in the middle, about 14, 12 to, actually, they say in the book 12 to 14, but I always learned 14 when I studied that, okay? It's about 2 weeks into her cycle, most fertility, okay? Now, don't forget, what happens is hormone levels fluctuate up and down, and that controls that whole cycle, and that's really what the chart is telling you. Okay, so questions like I'll ask you, okay, the function of progesterone, what does it do? Okay, what is the... Hormones are controlled by what in the human body? Well, it's actually 2 organs, basically. Ovaries too, but mostly the pituitary and the hypothalamus. Okay? But you can see why the question is kind of bogus. That's a book question because this is really controlling the signal protein that releases this. It's kind of like a flow chart. Without this, nothing's happening. Okay? So sometimes that hypothalamus cannot secrete that signal protein, and then it doesn't trigger this, and then menstruation stops.
Can you repeat that question? What question you're talking about?
Basically, what controls the human body, hormonal rate in females, okay, what would control menstruation, okay? It's basically the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and technically the ovaries, but on the test, okay, it's the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, okay? All right? Yes?
Alright, so what does LH and FSH stand for again?
This is luteinizing hormone, okay, this actually is... This plays a big role. This is the hormone that kind of says, okay, we're releasing the egg, and it controls the rate and frequency. This is actually the hormone that actually releases the follicle itself. It actually goes into the ovary and releases it. Both of them work in conjunction together to actually cause menstruation to go through the cycle.
And then so the follicle carries the egg, right, and then it bursts and lets it go?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right? Okay?
So what actually is, what would be like the answer for what?
Look it up. Okay, look it up. I'm not going to give you any more answers. I actually read right from the test. Everybody I'm like, you guys have probably a bigger advantage than most classes because I read right from the test, which I shouldn't have done. Okay, so that is the question. Some of you guys are recording it. I don't care if you want to share it with somebody, but please make sure you're prepared for it. Yeah?
So what is projection?
Look it up. Right in it. Okay, all right, anybody got questions? It wasn't the reading. All right, everybody got questions? That's it. Anybody who was absent yesterday, the essay questions?